Good evening. The hour being after 6:45, it's my pleasure to call the October 26, 2023 school committee meeting to order. Our first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our second order of business tonight is a recognition. We have some Walpole High School seniors that we want to recognize tonight.
Yes, and I'm not going to steal their thunder, and I'm not going to steal the thunder of Allison Wilson, the high school counselor, so I'm going to call them up so she can talk about and recognize these wonderful students for not only the National Merit Scholarship finalists, but also our commended scholars for the National Merit Scholarship Program, and talk a little bit about the program and recognize these well-deserved students.
Do they come as well?
Sure.
Yeah, come on down.
So we are very excited at Walpole High School that we have 3 students that were recognized by the National Merit Scholarship Corporation. Jonah, on the end here, was named a semifinalist and has actually moved on to the finalist position. And Elsa Vanderlinden and Akash Mishra have received the title of commended students. So when our juniors take the PSAT, they're all considered for this scholarship, and the students with the highest scores in the country will get the semifinalist title. There's about 16,000 in the whole country, but only a few hundred in Massachusetts. So Jonah Vanderlinden got that. And then the next highest level are the commended students. So I also wanted to tell you a little bit about what's so great about these students, because even though they did score so well, they're also excellent members of our community. They're intelligent, they're strong students, they're involved both in the high school and in the greater Walpole community. So I want to brag about them a little bit. Jonah is also president of the National Honor Society. He's an accomplished musician. I'm going to try to list all of his instruments. Marimba. I know them. No, vibraphone, alto sax, and can do 4 mallets on the glockenspiel, right? He's in the jazz band, the concert band, has gone to districts, to SEMSBA, all kinds of amazing accomplishments. And if you've ever seen him, it's really a treat to watch him play. What else did I want to say about you? Oh, and he has a part-time job, among other clubs, at Roach Brothers Marketplace. Elsa is a 3-sport athlete, captain of the cross-country team, and is also in the winter track and spring track. She's also an accomplished musician. She plays the, I know this, I'm sorry, I'm very nervous. She plays the trumpet in the jazz band. She is on the math team and in the Red Cross Club, and also has a job serving at banquets. Okay, and then Akash has the prestigious title or rank of an Eagle Scout, which is no small feat. He's also on the robotics team and does dog sitting and babysitting. So we're really, really proud of these students. They are polite and kind and respectful and an absolute joy to work with. So we're really proud of them. To talk to them at all or ask any questions?
As they run away.
He ran from the mic.
Well, I'm gonna invite our committee members if they have any questions for these terrific students. We might make you come back to the microphone. I'm sorry. Mrs. Syrak.
I'm just wondering what your plans are for next year, if you have any yet.
Yeah, come on up.
Come up. I know what the Vanderlindens are hoping for, but yeah, come up.
I mean, me and Jonah are basically doing the same thing right now. We're applying early action to Yale, so fingers crossed. And then I think I'm going to study, right now I'm going to study mathematics or statistics or data science.
I'm probably going to do a major in environmental studies or environmental science, and then if I can, a minor in something more humanities or history-based.
Great.
I'm interested in STEM and engineering, and I plan to minor in something art-related.
Great, very impressive.
Mr. Buckley?
Through you, Madam Chair, I know we join with your folks and the greater Walpole community in commending you, and it's really amazing looking at the clock that there's only 24 hours in a day, and how much all three of you have accomplished in your short time, and where you're going and how you've set yourself up, and the opportunities you've taken to also give back to your community and be a resource as well. So we want to thank you, and as we're about 5 or 6 more months left in your senior year, take a break every now and then from being awesome and enjoy it, because you're what we strive for in the Walpole Public Schools. You're killing it. So congratulations.
Mrs.
I
Rogers?
just wanted to say a quick congratulations. And I heard babysitting, so maybe I'll have to get a phone number later. You'd be a great influence on any kids to be in your care. But congratulations to you all. That's great.
Mrs. Gallivan?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, you make us really proud, and it's the whole package thing. I mean, the academics were really, really pleased to see. I just think it's really exciting to see smart young people finding ways to contribute to this world, and it looks like you're planning that, even though some things will work out exactly the way you might think, and then others will give you an opportunity to look at things a little bit differently. But it's great for us to see it, but it's also great for younger kids to have role models like you. So thanks for being here tonight. We're really proud of you.
Yes, we are very, very proud of you, and we will end your embarrassment very shortly. But first, we would love a photo of the three of you with Ms. Wilson right up here. Ms. Mortelli will take a photo. Where are we going? Right up in front.
You can get to see yourselves on TV if you look at that back screen. It's your moment. Very nice.
Nice job. Thank you all. Sounds like you all have a lot of time on your hands and probably want to stick around. But if that's not the case, obviously,
We
you're
understand that
excused.
there are other things going on.
Congrats again. Enjoy the
Congrats
last.
to the mom and dad, too.
Thank you.
Okay, next item of business is our Walpole High School student report from Mr. Colin Mahoney.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Colin Mahoney, and I'm a senior at Walpole High School. Our fall sports teams have been celebrating their seniors over the past couple of weeks as their season continues. Walpole High School cheerleading placed second in their competition over the weekend. And as the fall season is coming to a close, sort of, seniors are applying to college, researching the workforce, looking into armed forces, and planning their futures. Colleges have been visiting the high schools during the intervention period on Wednesdays, and I can say that is definitely helpful as a senior because it's easier to just see them and learn about the college in your own high school instead of having to plan a visit and take a whole day to do it, which is really, really helpful. The Walpole High School PAC will hold its first meeting of the year, or it held it yesterday on October 25th at 7 p.m. in the Media Center. Best Buddies celebrated their annual Halloween party this past Sunday at the Walpole High School gym. Fun was definitely had. I do say so myself. And rain did not stop the Walpole High School UNICEF Club from holding their Trunk or Treat fundraiser in the high school parking lot this past Saturday. And tomorrow at the high school, Student Council will be holding CMAS conference called Commit to Your Community. And that's all for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Colin. Any questions or comments?
Great job.
Very good.
Thank you.
We'll see you next time.
Thank you. See you soon.
Okay, moving on to new business. Tonight we have an update from our Director of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion and our METCO Director.
Yes, Jasenia Burke, who's our DEI Director, and Atisha Winslow, our MECO Director. So they'll provide us with an update.
Hello, good evening, So thank you for having us tonight. Can you hear me?
Sure.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm excited to be here. Put a few slides together for you. So I will go ahead. Does everyone have a copy of what? Okay.
Yes.
So tonight I'm going to share, I'm excited, we have a new METCO program director, Ms. Atisha Winslow. Ms. Winslow comes to us from Cohasset Public Schools. She did some work with us here earlier in the school year as our METCO academic advisor, and she's now our Walpole METCO program director, so I'm excited to have Ms. Winslow. I'll do an overview of the program, and then I'll also do some updating of the DEI, what's happening in the department. So I thought this was an important slide. We have a new logo that we are now using and branding for the first time. That's a photo of some of our students from the METCO Directors Association Youth Leadership Conference last week at Emmanuel. So I just wanted to make sure I threw that in there because we have some of our branding that we're doing for the program. Again, we have a full-time METCO director. This year, we also have an intern from Bridgewater State College, which is new for us. Very excited about that partnership, hoping it's an opportunity when we're looking to diversify staff. So it's a new partnership that we're excited about. We have full-day kindergarten. This is the first year since I've been here, so that's super, super exciting. We have a cohort of babies over at Boyden Elementary School, so who are doing really, really well. There are 37 students in the program, which is an increase, I think, from the last time that I was here. We've always been like in the high 20s, so I'm excited that we're at 37 students, K through 12. And our students are at Boyden, OPR, JMS, Bird Middle School, and at the high school. We have lots of current partnerships going on with METCO headquarters, lots of training opportunities, lots of grant opportunities to advance our equity work, conferences. Today, for the first time, we had a cohort of students from Walpole High School participate in the Historically Black College and University Tour at Reggie Lewis. We had 13 students, and out of the 13, 10 students were resident students. So that was really, really exciting. I don't have the photos, I can share them with you, but the students had a really, really great time learning, understanding. HBCU, our director of guidance participated, so it was a really great day today. Our students are utilizing after-school programming at the middle schools with our extracurricular. We have students involved with academic support. And our students are also getting M7T passes from METCO headquarters, thanks to a partnership with Boston and the MBTA, which has been super, super helpful. Students who want to stay after, students who on half days want to leave before the bus goes, they're able to utilize their T-Pass. So those are some of the updates that are happening in the Walpole METCO program. And those are photos from our annual ice cream social to the left, and then to the right, Miss Atisha and I, over the summer, went to go visit some students at their summer program in Boston, so I wanted to include that. Another photo of our kiddos earlier this year at the METCO headquarters office in Boston after their win at the Tenacity Challenge, so I just wanted to make sure I threw that in there. Those are all middle school students. Last summer, our leadership team took a tour into Boston, and we did the tour of METCO headquarters. And these are some of the photos of the space. They have like a museum where they give you a whole history of METCO. Walpole is part of that history, as we've had the program since '68. I would love for the school committee to plan possibly to host a meeting at the site. So if that's something that we can possibly do, maybe in the spring, that would be awesome. Led by Ms. Atisha and my support. So now the DEI journey, I'm going to transition. I put this up there because I love James Baldwin, and I believe in this phrase, not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. I use that in my work here, in my journey, and as a reminder of how we're advancing equity here in Walpole. So I've given some bullets of from 2019 to where we are, kind of the story of how we got here. I think it's so important to, how did we get to where we are with our equity journey? So in 2019, we started with cultural proficiency training with Dr. Khalees Warnham. We started with understanding what is cultural proficiency. That was right before COVID. We then added the strategic plan during that time. In 2020, we established leadership, and that was the creation of the METCO director's position and the DEI director's position. Again, continuing our training with Dr. Khalees Warnham with leadership, with some of our task force members. In 2021, it was the formation and awareness building, which was a development of our district-wide equity task force, which are members of school staff from all of our schools. We meet monthly and do training. We meet to develop activities that will support and, again, advance equity in our schools. 2022, 21-22 was the equity audit, where we were really looking at the data, kind of like the why of why we're doing the work. So that's also part of our journey. And then the strategic planning success, we ended our summer, the leadership retreat, with some more work with Dr. Warnham as we continue to look at the work that we're doing to be a culturally proficient district. This is a list of kind of our DEI toolbox. These are some of the language, our common language that we're using. So I just wanted to highlight that as well. Equity audit, what is diversity, equity, and inclusion? Our strategic plan, making sure everything that we do is aligning with the strategic plan. I love this quote as well from Jamila Dugan, just reminding us that equity is more than tools, strategies, and compliance. It is understanding that it is embedded in the whole person, whole system changes and processes linked to culture, identity, and healing. She has a great book out too, by the way. So I just wanted to also share and celebrate some of the impacts and shifts in our practice since we have started this journey. The DEI department, in partnership with Dr. Hahn and the new staff orientation, annually present where we are talking about the work, talking about our strategic plan. Myself and the equity ambassador present every summer to new staff. All of our hiring questions, hiring questions now include DEI language to ask about questions about equity. We have a DEI podcast, which is space and opportunity to dialogue amongst staff about our work here in the district around equity. Intentional professional development with lens of equity. Again, our equity task force, that's the work that we're doing. Increase in diverse books and resources. And then our Ed Camp, really partnering with technology, SEL, and including DEI, which you'll probably hear more of later in the evening. And that's it for my update. Any questions?
Thank you. Questions or comments for Mrs. Burke? Mr. Buckley?
Through you, Madam Chair. Thank you very much. It was a great presentation. I know the equity audit was something that gave us a lot of data, and we're looking at where, as a district, who's struggling and where we can kind of speak to student needs. Could you touched on it briefly, and I heard Bridgewater State, so my antenna went up because we're just swimming with BC people over here, so it's great. We get some State College kids in here. Could you just tell us a little bit more about what that internship is? And I like partnering with those teacher training schools. And
Absolutely. So I got a call earlier in the year from a student getting their undergraduate degree there who had an interest specifically in Walpole METCO program because it was connected. They knew that the director was, that I was the DEI and METCO director. And they were very interested in what that connection was. So they specifically seeked us out, which is great. I didn't know who they were. And I was like, absolutely, I've never had an intern. You have a desire to learn more. And then my position changed and now I'm full-time DEI. But it's been a really great partnership, just learning and having her learn. She's a social worker, working with our students, working with all students, and really working K through 12, supporting the program and learning so much about our community. So, and actually having conversations about really liking the community, if this could be a future. So again, that pipeline that we, would like to build with students, I think would be great.
That's awesome. I think it's a great opportunity. We're in the education business, but to also bring people who are in that process and full of energy and are on the front line of the academics as well. I think that's great to see.
Mrs. Gallivan?
Just a couple of things. First of all, welcome, Atisha. This is my first time meeting you, but I'm glad you're on the team. I just have a couple of different questions. The TPAS that they have access to. The bus line would take them to Forest Hills, correct?
Yes.
Do they get, like, beyond that? Like, because obviously they don't live exactly at Forest Hills. So does it get them home, I guess is my question?
So yes, for the students that do utilize it.
Okay.
It gets them on the train, they have access to the commuter rail, to the bus. And so yes, once they get to, I mean, I haven't heard otherwise, but it gets them right home. Some of them, their parents will get them from
Sure.
like a Forest Hills.
Of course.
But yeah, they have access to all T
Good.
that's working.
They're able to use the M7 pass throughout the entire year. Like, it will expire August of next year, so they even can use it on the weekends.
Good, good.
And for summer jobs and when they have to go to their employment or internships, yeah. It's been a real good benefit.
Nice.
Yeah.
My second question is about the Tenacity Challenge, which, congratulations on doing so well with it. I think it's something that the whole district could learn from. And I don't know whether you've thought about this yet, but like try to share the best ideas that you come up with there that we could all learn from. Because I'd like to learn a little bit more about it myself.
Yeah. This year, we're starting the conversations with building principals about expanding it. So having a high school team. The students who were part of Tenacity last year are already asking, they're now freshmen, are we going to do Tenacity? And how do we open that too so that we've got resident students, it's not just Metco, we open it to all students. And it's a scholarship opportunity, especially at the high school level. They're going through these competitions. By the time they become a senior, they'll have scholarship funding. So I'm excited that it was our first year participating and our middle schoolers won STEM first place. I'm forever going to talk about that. So yeah, absolutely. That's a place, an area of growth, and how do we turn that into something bigger? Yeah.
I think you're onto something good. So yeah. Then my last question is, I like the fact that it sounds like we are setting up systems so that kids can stay after school if they want to, for fun or for academic help. Are there any other things that you think that we should be doing to help any of the Metco students in particular feel well integrated in the community?
Anything else? I think continue creating the space and opportunity for dialogue. I think hearing directly from the students, just continue to create that. I know one of the things myself and Dr. Goff, like lunch spaces, and not just students in the METCO program, but lots of different students, just coming together, just the space to hear what is their story, how do we make school, this great place, or continue to make it this great place. So I would say just space and opportunity to have dialogue is what I would say.
Thanks for doing that, because it takes people willing to be the leaders of that, so thanks for doing it.
Yeah, of course.
Mrs. Rogers?
Two things. I'd like to, so I don't know about the Tenacity program, so I would love to maybe have more of a definition of what that is. Sounds like it's a competition and has STEM involved, but that's all I know at this point.
Yes, I can share. So Tenacity Challenge started out of Bedford Public Schools, and it's a scholarship, how do I describe it? It's a scholarship competition for Black and Latino students specifically because the former superintendent at the time found that there were not enough opportunities, so they developed Tenacity Challenge. And it started at the high school level. And I want to say maybe 6-7 years ago, they've now created a middle school component because they have found that it was so successful. And students come from all over, not just METCO districts, there's students from all over the Commonwealth that have teams that come together to compete in STEM. There's a reading literature component, and there's another component that escapes me, but it's really great, and the beauty of it is students get to come together. They get to see each other, they get to network, and they get to compete for scholarship funding.
That's awesome. My second question was, so I know Dr. Goff is putting together like sort of a student cabinet. Do we have any METCO students that have shown interest in that or might be applying? I think that'd be a great place to have student voice.
I think we have students in the METCO program and additional students that we've been encouraged, I have encouraged to really apply so that students understand that their voice really matters and we really do that we don't do this without them, so they have to be part of the puzzle. So I don't know the final who's gotten into it, but yes, we were encouraging students, yes.
Great avenue for them.
Yeah,
Thank you.
of course, of course.
It's really remarkable to see the timeline and see how much work has been done in 4 short years. I mean, they felt long because they were COVID years, but and I'm very happy this is sort of your formal debut as the full-time DEI director, and I think that it's wonderful now that we have more distinction between DEI and METCO, and we're not conflating them as the same thing. METCO is a very special program that deserves its own shine and its own conversations, and DEI is everyone, and it's foundational to everything that we do. And so I subscribe to the weekly email newsletter that comes out from METCO headquarters. And I would encourage everybody here and everybody listening to do the same. Every week I see photos from school committee meetings that have been held at METCO headquarters. So I think at this point we might be one of the only ones left that haven't gotten there yet. So I would like to rectify that by the end of this school year. I also see they have this spotlight on best practices in different districts that get at, I think, the point you were trying to make, Mrs. Gallivan, about what our community's doing to foster relationships and foster belonging for the METCO students in their district. And so I would encourage everyone to subscribe to that because it might spark some ideas. I will put on my Boyden parent hat for a second and say, I know that there is a will among the elementary schools in particular to really build and foster those relationships. And I think now that we have kindergartners, it's great to think about new ways of doing that and building those relationships really early in their K through 12 journey. So I just want to mention that. Am I correct that this was the first year that METCO parents could express a district preference, or is this the second year?
So this is the first year.
First year, okay. And so I'm just curious, any insight you have into how that may or may not have affected enrollment, or when you were speaking with potential prospective parents, what information or feedback you got?
You know, out of the 8 new students we placed, 8 or 9, I don't remember, 3 of them are siblings. So we have a really big sibling, like families want to return to Walpole. So that has really helped. The families who selected us, it was either by, you know, they knew someone who came through the program or relative based. But no, it hasn't made a huge impact on our, people are still selecting Walpole.
Yeah.
So.
I'd love to see it have a really positive impact, right?
Yeah.
And see us get more people expressing interest. But then I know that we're geographically farther than a lot of the other districts, and that plays a role too.
And we also have the one bus that we also have to balance and be mindful when we're, you know, if we could have 60 kids, that'd be great, but we got to balance out. So slowly, but yes.
Okay. Last question. The podcast that you mentioned, is that something anybody can access, or what does that
So
look
yes,
like?
I think it's on the district staff site. Actually, that's a good question. But it's through Spotify and something else when we do it at the schools. I've been part of it, and other equity task force members, Dr. Hahn's been on it. I think anyone can listen to it. I think it's on the district site.
Maybe we could get a link that Mrs. Mortale can include in
Absolutely.
the summary.
And if anyone wants to be part of the podcast, let me know. We'd be happy to have you.
Great. Dr. Goff, yes.
Yes. Well, thank you. Thank you both for your hard work and continued hard work. I mean, there's so much that's been done, and I know you're going to continue to do. Tisha, I just want to know, how is the transition going for you? I know you have a great mentor, but I don't think we'd like to hear from you.
It's going well. Everybody's making me feel, welcomed. I'm developing partnerships with the students, relationships with the students and with the staff. So everything's going well. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Welcome, and keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Okay, our next update is from our English Language Education Director.
Sure, that will be Jill Kimball. She's going to provide us with an update regarding the ELE program.
Great. Well, thank you so much for having me tonight. I am thrilled to talk about our English language education program. Jumping in. So this year, students in our English language education program represent 30 countries. The majority of our students come from the United States, followed by Brazil at about 15%, then El Salvador and India both at a little over 3%, and then the next two countries at about 2.5% are Russia and Nepal. But again, we do have 30 countries represented in our school system, only with students in the English language education program. We also have students who are not in the ELE program who also represent other countries. And our program students collectively speak 30 languages in addition to English. The top language in our program right now is Portuguese, followed by Spanish at 18%, then Arabic at 11%, Russian at 8%, and Nepali at just about 5%. Those are our top 5 languages. But again, we do have 30 languages in addition to English, just in our multilingual learner program. Again, not outside of that, which is very exciting. In looking at our program students this year, we have 157 currently in our English language education program. Last year at this time, you see we had 152. It does look like an increase of 5, but we actually welcomed 49 new students to our program this year. We had almost 40 students exit our program last year. They met the criteria to exit the English language education program, which was really exciting. So we did welcome 49 new students to the program this year. The orange bars represent our former English language education program students, and that means students who have exited the ELE program. In Massachusetts, we monitor students for 4 years, and that's progress monitoring twice a year to track the success of students after they leave the program. So you can see that we've had some students who were 4 years last year and have exited, and we've entered our new almost 40 students into that new track of former ELE program students. We do have one SLIFE student this year. SLIFE is a student with limited or interrupted formal education. This is a Massachusetts Department of Education eligibility category, and there are 6 criteria to meet in order to be considered as a SLIFE eligible student. All students who enter the English language education program must be screened with our SLIFE screener. It starts with a pre-screener of 4 components. If students meet those 4 components, then they move on to additional screening, which would be assessments in literacy and numeracy in the home language. And based upon those assessments, they may then qualify or not. We did have 3 students this year who met all 4 criteria in the pre-screener, and then 1 did meet the criteria in the assessment piece. And then our last category, the kind of royal blue color there, is our English Language Success Plan category. And the English Language Success Plan are the students who did not meet the benchmark scores on the Access Proficiency Testing that they take every year in January. Must be put on the ELSP. Now, the ELSP came out of the Look Act out of November 22nd, 2017, Governor Baker signed the Look Act into law, and the ELSP arose from that. And basically, each student in the English language education program receives their own benchmark score that they need to meet every year in order to attain English proficiency within 6 years. So depending on where their first score lies and their last score lies in 6 years, the Department of Education calculates out where they need to be each year. 6 years is the average for students to exit an ELE program. If the students do not meet that individual benchmark, hence they go on that English Language Success Plan, I'm thrilled to say that we cut that in half, more than in half. We had 47 students last year that did not meet their benchmark and were placed on a plan, and this year we're down to 22 students. So that's excellent to see. You can see here just the district disbursement of our ELE program students. You can see that every school in our district does have students in the English language education program, as well as students who are former English learners, except for our preschool, as they are new to the program, and then our out-of-district placements do not have any former students. But every other school in the district does have ELE program students and students who are being progress monitored for that 4 years in their former ELE program. And here is a breakdown by proficiency level of our 157 students. 7% of our students are in preschool. And preschool students do not have the same screening assessment as our grades K through 12. So they don't get that WIDA score, which gives us the level 1 to 6. So we just have a preschool category of eligible or not eligible. The rest of the students outside of preschool, K through 12, are categorized as either a foundational multilingual learner in the ELE program, and foundational would be any student between a level 1 and a 2.4. Again, the WIDA levels go from 1 to 6, with 1 being a student who's new to the English language and 6 being a student who's at grade level proficiency. The state of Massachusetts exits students at a 4.2. So 1 to 2.4, we have 32% of our students who are new to the English language. The transitional students are 2.5 to that exit level of 4.2, and that 60% of students is getting ready to exit the program. We do have 263 educators as part of our ELE program, which is very exciting. 8 of those educators are teacher and coordinator in our English for Multilingual Learner program. The other half of our program for ELE instruction is our Sheltered English Immersion program, of which we do have 255 teachers and administrators working towards our multilingual learner instruction, which is amazing. And talking about some of our ELE updates for this year. So first, in looking at our compliance and accountability, just as with the special education program, we are also going through tiered focus monitoring this year, otherwise known as the CPR, now the TFM. It did start last spring as well with our self-assessment. And this year we will be having an OLA, Office of Language Acquisition, desk review. And then they will be doing a virtual visit this year as opposed to an on-site, because we are considered a low to mid incidence ELE district. So those districts will have a virtual visit instead of the on-site visit this year. The second piece is our Elevation platform, which is actually a platform that we brought to the district I'm very excited about, which for compliance purposes holds all of our information on our students in the English language education program. So not only do we have this great platform to maintain our compliance and accountability data, but it also puts the information for our ELE students into the hands of our 263 educators who need this information for instruction and assessment. So I'm thrilled that we also have that available to us to use for the benefit of our program and for our multilingual students. In looking at family engagement, we do have our MLPAC, our Multilingual Learner Parent Advisory Council, up and running. We had our first meeting on Wednesday, October 18th. It was well attended. We will be meeting every other month on the third Wednesday, and we will advertise in all of the school newsletters, as well as through the Apogee Thrill Share going home, those messages, so that is very exciting. In the translation and interpretation world, we actually have some new programs to make sure that we are reaching all of our families and engaging all of our families in our school community. As Mr. Reeve mentioned a few weeks ago, we have the new Apogee Thrill Share program, which interprets and translates information into all of our district languages. So those messages going home to families will be received in the language of request. We also have a new company that we're working with this year called Lexicate, and Lexicate is an interpretation company that's able to provide simultaneous interpretation, which is a little bit different than the sequential, which is we present something, we give some time for the interpreter to come in, present, and it usually sometimes doubles the times of our meetings or our events. Well, with Lexicate, they're able to provide simultaneous interpretation, so it's happening concurrently as the meeting is occurring. We used it at our first MLPAC. All of the families in attendance could put on a headset and hear the meeting in their language in real time. So that was actually pretty exciting, so that all parents could and guardians could participate. It's wonderful. And then in our ELE and MLFEC world, we have 2 new web pages up and running. The first one is the English Language Education webpage, and that webpage does provide information about our program and our entrance and exit criteria. And then we also started this year a Multilingual Learner Family Engagement Center. And so far, this has been very popular, which I'm also very excited about. The Family Engagement Center has been set up to engage our families who are new to the country or new to Walpole. And the MLFEC webpage not only gives information about Walpole schools and Walpole community, it's also a forum where our parents who speak languages other than English or are new to, again, the community or the country can ask questions about schooling in the United States, or can ask questions about just the Walpole community or things that they're not quite familiar with. And that's actually been used quite a bit this year, which I'm very excited about. And as parents and guardians send us questions about U.S. schooling or about the Walpole community, we try and post the answers on the MLFEC webpage so that everyone in the community can benefit from those answers. We also have on that webpage some resources for English language classes that are being offered free of charge in the community or surrounding area. So that's actually been a very great addition to, I think, our ELE page and our website. In looking at ELE program coordination, this summer we worked on curriculum mapping. WIDA actually has put out new, WIDA, for those who aren't familiar with it, is actually a consortium, World-Class Instructional Design and Assessment, but is what we subscribe to for instruction and assessment in the state of Massachusetts. There are actually, I believe now, up over 40 states and territories that all follow WIDA for instruction assessment of the multilingual learners in their English language education program. Massachusetts is one of those states, and WIDA did put out new standards. So this summer we worked on mapping those standards and creating a vertical alignment in our ELE program of those standards K-12, and we'll continue to work on that with scope and sequence and unit planning moving forward. Our ELE progress reporting is actually up for revision this year. Our parents and guardians in our ML pack actually advised on progress reporting and some ways that we may be able to make the English language education progress report more effective or more beneficial to the reader at the other end. So we're working with our parents and guardians now in ML pack in revising our ELE progress report for the benefit of those who are receiving it. And then we also this year have membership in the DESE Office of Language Acquisition Advisory Group, which is exciting. So we will work with them this year. This year, the OLA Advisory Group is working on multilingual learner classroom walkthrough, a walkthrough tool to discuss what should be seen in classrooms with multilingual learners. The OLA Advisory Group is also working this year on looking for guidance and advisory in the area of exit criteria from the program. Again, I mentioned right now the exit criteria is a 4.2 as well as observable success in content area classes, but that is also, I guess, under discussion at the state level. And in our English language development world, we actually have some new classes, which I'm very excited about as well. They are off to a great start, and we're having great success with them. First, at Walpole High School, we now have ELE content classes. These are sheltered English classes in the areas of social studies, math, and English language arts that are just for our students who are foundational multilingual learners in our ELE program or students who are new to the country. These students are learning both language and content at the same time, so these classes have been very helpful in working with those students at that level. We also started this year at Walpole High School a math and literacy lab. Again, this is also open to students who are at the foundational levels of language or students who are new to the country within their first 12 months who are learning both the English language at the same time as learning the content in the classrooms. So the math and literacy lab will provide them with some extra supports. And this year we also added an ELE summer program. This was actually a component of the larger Walpole Public Schools summer program, and we had 22 students in grades 1 through 8 attend our ELE summer program, which was very exciting to see. So we are growing. That is the update for ELE. Thank you so much. Are there any questions?
Thank you. That was, we could probably ask you 1,000 questions and keep you here all night because there's so much there that is interesting and exciting, and yeah, it's wonderful. Anybody have any questions or comments for Dr. Kimball? Mr. Buckley.
I stopped counting how many times he said excited after 10.
I am very excited about this
7:31,
program.
and I wish I had the energy and vigor you have for the subject matter. And that's really refreshing, and I want to thank you for that. And it's interesting, actually. I just happened to be talking to somebody in our community who came to Walpole in the 50s as an Italian immigrant speaking. She called me on something totally unrelated, and I was looking at my packet at the time. I said, hey, I got this ELE update. And it's just a wonderful thing to see how much rigorous intervention in a very focused way we can give people who are new to our community. Not that people new to our community is new, but I think that the outcomes and the student outcomes and the way this is organized is really setting us up for success. It's great to see that, unlike perhaps in previous decades of how this type of program will be set up, it's not a track for students. It's an intervention that allows them to more fully integrate into the wider populace. So the data is great stuff. Acronyms I'm having a difficult time with, but it all sounds great. And I just want to thank you for your vigor in this. And it's clearly rubbing off on your staff and your team, and the outcomes are speaking for themselves. So that's great.
Thank you.
Mrs.
I was
Rogers?
just going to say the same, that your enthusiasm is infectious. And I've heard, I was able to meet you at one of the open house nights,
Yes.
and I just think, that is going to spread to your colleagues, and the kids are going to feel it, and it's inspiring.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Breen?
I'd like to say you do see progress. I have 3 students this year from Ukraine. I'm a high school teacher. And in the first few days of school, they speak a few words of English, and now they're sort of conversing, in brief spurts, but conversing with you over, whatever the issue is. So you do see progress, which is nice to see.
That's great. That's great.
I'm really hoping to get to one of the MLPAC meetings at some point this year. As the daughter of an English language learner before that was a thing, I don't think she had anything in her classroom, right? That was a long time ago, but it's just wonderful to see what is available to students, but I think more importantly, what's available to families. And I'm sure you have ways of getting the word out to the families that we do have translation, we do have supports. It doesn't have to be a question about what's going on in the classroom in order for you to get support from the school department. So that's great. And the last thing I just want to say is to thank you for your visibility in the community, because you're out at so many different community events and the open houses, and that's important too, because you're signaling that this population is a valued part of our community, and you're just, I think, increasing visibility and increasing awareness that we have these populations, and we're supporting them very well, and they're finding success in our schools. So thank you for that.
We all wonder at leadership if she ever sleeps. Seriously.
That's kind of the trend
Above and
tonight.
beyond.
Nobody
Above and beyond.
sleeps. Everybody's just out here killing it all the time. Well, thank you, Dr. Kimball, for being here. It's always a pleasure to see you,
Thank
and
you so
keep up the great work.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Good night now.
Okay, next on the agenda is updates on strategic plan goals 3 and 4. So we had 1 and 2 at our last meeting, and this will take us through the other half.
Right, so Principal David Barner from Old Post Road School will provide an update on Strategic Plan Goal 3, and Director of Digital Learning, Tom Reed, will provide a Goal 4 update for the strategic.
Good evening. I'm pleased to be providing the update for Goal 3 from our strategic plan. Goal 3 reads, to demonstrate a high level of cultural proficiency as evidenced by active promotion of diversity in all aspects of instruction, learning, and participation, thus ensuring equity for all and full inclusion of members of the educational and greater community. As noted in the strategic plan, we believe that an inclusive culture starts from the premise that everyone in the school belongs. Students, educators, administrators, support staff, and parents should feel that they belong, realize their potential, and contribute to the life of the school and community. So, over the past few years, an incredible amount of valuable work has been done to address Goal 3. I'll update you on a few of the recent highlights, knowing that the work is ongoing. Objective 3.1 is focused leadership to analyze and promote diversity, equity, and inclusion in Walpole Public Schools. This is the crux of moving forward with a united approach, stemming from a strong knowledge base that is shared among all stakeholders. Our district equity statement was created through the collaboration of all of the school staff. The statement reads, Walpole Public Schools community members have a shared responsibility to create spaces and curriculum that embrace diversity, learning, and belonging. In addition to cultivating relationships with our students, we must acknowledge and work to eliminate bias in order to affirm and promote inclusivity. Action step 2 has us looking at models and determining the structure dedicated to diversity, equity, and inclusion, keeping in mind recommendations from the equity audit. We have researched other models of DEI and structures utilized in other districts, as well as from the Job Alike group AMSEL. AMSEL is the Association for Massachusetts Equity Leaders. Since the last update, we have added the position of DEI Director, Jasenia Burke. A district equity ambassador has been appointed, Bailey Ty, who provides another level of input. The work of the task force continues with members who represent all of the schools during monthly equity task force meetings. The equity task force has benefited from consultation work with Dr. Khalees Warnham this year and Dr. Christina Kiles-Smith. Development of administration continues with these consultants during summer work and throughout the school year. Administrators continue to regularly learn, share, and collaborate during leadership council meetings, and disseminate information during staff meetings and curriculum meetings. Action step 3 looks closely at creating a unified district language around mission and goals. The Walpole Public Schools utilizes a set of terms and definitions to create a shared language and framework for equity-related conversations and to build awareness of the district's equity language. This terminology is on the DEI staff site. As developing common language is ever-changing, it will evolve as we promote clearly defined terms related to diversity, equity, and inclusion for consistent use across the district, with consideration for grade level appropriateness. We have updated terms in the ELE department to be inclusive of the linguistic skills and talents that our students bring to the educational arena. English learner is now a multilingual learner in the English language education program. New terms were shared during district elevation training provided to all teachers. The act of ensuring communication and transparency to all stakeholders occurs regularly. The DEI newsletter is shared with stakeholders through school weekly updates several times during the school year. Communication from the Equity Task Force flows frequently from school representatives to the school staff. Another source of excellent communication of resources is the DEI Equity Hub website for staff and the public website that has been created by the WPS Office of DEI. We've also communicated an inclusive message around providing language access to all parents and through translated documents at open house, interpretation at school events, translated district forms, and weekly principal emails. Our communication is frequent, transparent, multifaceted, and accessible by all. Objective 3.2, create a shared community vision of belonging where everyone feels accepted, valued, heard, and encouraged to participate as their authentic selves. We are continuing to partner with a variety of community groups to realize our shared mission and enhance community partnerships. Some of these include the Metco HQ, the Metco Directors Professional Development Conference, Metco Back to School Ice Cream Social, participation in community events, Be Inclusive, which attended some of our staff meetings to introduce themselves and present their mission, the Multicultural Book Initiative, providing inclusive themed literature to all schools for student and teacher use and discussion across settings, the Walpole High School Multicultural Alliance, the DEI office partner with MLPAC for the very popular and well-attended Multicultural Night, the Walpole Educators of Color Network, the CPAC, Special Education Parent Advisory Committee, affinity groups at the high school, Student Tenacity Challenge, the Mass Partnership of Diversity in Education, who also offered the Building Bridges Conference attended by Walpole staff. We run MLPAC monthly meetings for parents and guardians to collaborate on a shared vision for the success of multilingual learners through ELE programming. We also created a Multilingual Learner Family Engagement Center, the MLFEC, webpage for parents and guardians of multilingual learners to learn more about schools and community of Walpole. We hold an annual meet and greet at the Preserve Housing Development to connect with our families who reside there. We recognize and participate in national celebrations of as many cultures as possible. Using data to inform practice and procedures has taken place throughout the year. Our data teams look at how various student subgroups are performing on standardized tests and how we can best address making improvements when necessary and celebrating successes. Additionally, the analysis of population data, attendance data, and discipline data took place across the schools and continues to take place on a regular basis. If the analysis identifies any trends with regard to student population representation, conversations take place about next steps. Staff recruiting and hiring practices have also been a focus for attention recently. We seek to hire staff members who represent backgrounds and individual traits similar to our students, community, and our society. The leadership team participated in a training from a consultant from MPDE to further our knowledge of recruiting a wider range of candidates. We refined our interview process by including culturally responsive questions. Adding and asking candidates to share their thoughts showed that many of them are well equipped and ready to share their thoughts on culturally responsive practices in education and contribute to the growth of our district. Our district mentor program continues the conversation of DEI and culturally responsive practices with new hires. Objective 3.3, infuse diversity, equity, and inclusion within the curricular and co-curricular activities and instruction. Using the CR24 model, we continue to provide formal and informal opportunities for staff development and guidance related to vetting curricular resources and classroom practices. All of our staff have been trained in CR24 to be reflective when planning with curriculum materials, to make sure they have been vetted, and we're looking through the lens of equity and accessibility. Staff review ELA resources to ensure representation of all constituencies in the literature that is read by and to our students. This includes all of our summer reading selections as well. Reviewing literature and curriculum materials and having a heightened awareness of culturally appropriate choices is present every day. To increase the number of co-curricular opportunities accessible to students, schools took time at staff meetings to discuss school events, programs, and extracurricular activities to review obstacles to participation. Part of this review process was then to remove barriers to make all co-curricular programs inclusive for all. At some schools, this extended to our PAC meetings, where PAC members took the time to review their events for inclusivity and accessibility. The PAC review resulted in offering scholarships for registration fees, along with private methods to request support and other revisions to events. Schools hold cultural arts assemblies to teach all students the meaning of equity and the role it plays in our learning community. We've also had pep rally to celebrate the students involved in our unified sports teams. The high school has created several EL classes, English, math, and social studies, where ML students can get credit towards graduation while learning the language of specific subject areas. Administrators are using observation process to highlight and inform teaching practices aligned with the DESE's standards on cultural proficiency. Frequently discussed is how observers look for the use of appropriate inclusive practices, such as tiered supports and scaffolded instruction, to accommodate differences in students' learning needs, abilities, interests, and levels of readiness, including those of academically advanced students, students with disabilities, English learners, and those with culturally diverse backgrounds. Leadership Council regularly shares problems of practice to delve into culturally responsive pedagogy as it applies to our daily practice. During observers' walkthroughs and formal observations in classrooms, evaluators take into account how teachers are building their own cultural proficiency within the classroom and their instruction to meet the diverse needs of their students. And finally, we just implemented a new electronic tool for our walkthroughs that will enhance our ability to use this data in many ways. There's been a tremendous amount of work on Goal 3, and I just presented a tremendous amount of information, but I'll be happy to answer any questions for you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Berner. Another highly comprehensive presentation. Questions or comments for Mr. Berner on Goal 3? Mrs. Gallivan.
I would just comment, you just joined the no sleeping team apparently, because that was a lot. I know it's not just you, but.
And I feel like I left out a lot too, because there is so much going on.
No, but thank you.
Mr. Berner, for those who aren't familiar with the CR24 model, could you talk a little bit about where that comes from?
Sure.
You would talk a little about that?
Sure.
You want to give it a shot first, or you want to?
Sure. Well, it's a regulation that's required that all staff are trained in Curriculum Review 24 so that they're able to look at all of their curriculum materials and review it for cultural responsive representation across all areas. So looking at and we have a model called the Washington model that teachers can refer to, and we're trained on how to look at their materials through this lens to ensure equity across materials.
Yeah, I think you did a great job, Scott. I would just add that one of the things that makes it unique is I think a lot of people think of curriculum reviews as a district responsibility, and CR24 highlights that it's actually the individual responsibility of each teacher to be able to analyze and review their classroom materials and their curriculum resources. So that it's not just like a traditional textbook review that maybe 5 people might sit down from a department and look at. It's really the daily responsibility of all of our teachers. So we developed 3 years ago a pretty comprehensive review process, and then did a train the trainer model. And now it's something we do at every orientation and refresh every year with our staff. And actually, what's really awesome about it is while it feels like we're stating it almost like a compliance exercise, we've gotten so much positive feedback from our staff about how it's really allowed them to be more critical and analyze their resources and their curriculum for bias or something that doesn't necessarily represent all the students in their classroom.
Thank you. I'm not trying to lengthen your presentation in any way, but I think that what is unique about Goal 3 and Goal 2 in our strategic plan, they have a lot to do with community and culture within our school buildings, and our students obviously play a really large part in that. It can't all come from staff. And so it would be great to hear at some point what are the student activities or opportunities that are available to involve them in this work and help them create the kind of school buildings that they want to come to every day and that feel comfortable and safe for them. So that was my only point. Anything else? Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barner.
And we'll move on to Goal 4.
Good evening. I'm here tonight to present a progress report on Goal 4 of our strategic plan, which is focused on ensuring that our facilities and resources support student learning and well-being. As you know, Goal 4 is a bit different from the other goals due to its grounding in infrastructure and building construction. Rather than dig into details that have been discussed in many other meetings, I'll just be providing a basic overview of our goals and our status. Objective 1 is to effectively provide for the safety, health, and welfare of all members of the Walpole school community. Our focus, under this objective, our main focus is the establishment of annual practices to review, update, and communicate health, safety, and critical incident emergency protocols. This is a collaborative effort involving the Leadership Council, Walpole Police Department, Walpole Fire Department, and the Walpole Health Department. We've been implementing these practices for the past few years and are working towards establishing the review as an annual routine. For example, critical incident training is part of our annual new staff orientation training. Similarly, all staff take part in mandatory training in bloodborne pathogens and basic allergy and anaphylaxis response. Safety care training is ongoing throughout the year, and our new extended day director, Dan Santangelo, just finished his certification so that we have a continuity of training throughout this school year. Additionally, we've been considering our digital safety as well, and we are participating in a grant to train all of our staff in recognizing and preventing online phishing and social engineering fraud. In a similar way to training everyone to keeping exterior doors locked, this cybersecurity training teaches our staff how to be skeptical and suspicious of suspicious email and other vulnerabilities. Something I forgot to add to my slide, but I should mention too, is that we're in the final testing stages of compliance for Ray Baum's Act, which is an addition to the reverse 911 protocols. We've been working with our phone partners to set up our phone system so that if somebody dials 911 from any phone within our building, the police will get a dispatchable location to the building, the floor, the wing, and the classroom where the call came from, and they can direct dial back immediately to that classroom rather than having to go through the switchboard and those kinds of things. We're in the final stages of getting that compliance done now. As I said before, an upcoming extension to this goal is not only to conduct these safety, health, and welfare trainings, but also to establish practices to review the trainings annually to update our needs. Objective 2 is to identify and plan for future-ready facilities projects. Naturally, this goal focuses on the middle school construction. In fact, it's a little awkward for me to present this to you, since most of you know the details of this far better than I do. There are many phases of a school building project, and we're currently mid-construction on target for an opening for the start of the 24-25 school year. If you haven't been by Bird recently, the construction has transitioned from its random steel beams phase to looking more like an actual school from the outside. We track progress of the construction on the middle school project website, which can be found from our district website. This updates weekly with construction photos and provides a look into upcoming work. Recently, teaching staff from Bird and Johnson have taken walking tours of the buildings in progress. And are right now performing sit tests to select chairs and other furniture that will be going into the buildings. This is part of our FF&E stage that finalizes furniture, fixtures, and equipment for the new building. As part of this stage, we're also finalizing our lists for classroom technology and equipment, and we'll be selecting specific devices and models over the next few weeks. This includes the selection of flat panel displays, projectors, and similar classroom equipment. Objective 4.3 is to identify, secure, and responsibly manage sustainable funding for all school department needs. The focus for this goal is the development of a plan for a high school building upgrade, another project that I know that you know far better than I do. So I'm not going to go into the details of that project, but a very quick overview, of course, that we are in one of the design phases working with the architect to finalize plans for school renovations and additions, which could include science lab renovations and a field house. Once the designs are completed, the work will begin to consider funding strategies and implications, including the all-important communication with our school community and town residents for the appropriate transparency into the benefits, financial implications, and possible timing of this kind of school project. In conclusion, we are making important progress towards achieving the objectives for Goal 4 in our strategic plan. The commitment and dedication of the school committee and the town of Walpole are vital in ensuring our facilities and resources align with the well-being and learning needs of our students. We will continue to monitor and evaluate and adapt our strategies to meet our Goal 4 objectives. Thank you for your ongoing support and commitment to our facilities and our school community.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for Mr. Reeves, Mrs. Rogers?
Going back to objective 4.1 with the safety care training. I was ESP last year, and one thing that I saw is, I know we try, but restraint training. I felt like we had a difficulty of finding people actually restraint trained when we were in the need of a child being restrained. So I'm assuming that that's part of the safety care training, would be restraint training.
Yeah, that's part of it, and safety care also involves de-escalation so that we don't need the restraint as much as well.
Yeah, okay. And that I'm just curious who it will be identified like as those people that are trained, or how will teachers know who is trained in those areas?
Do you want me to take that?
Yeah, well, then, yeah.
Yeah, he was talking that Dan, the extended day director, is now facilitating that. So working with the leadership team and the principals, they identify the necessary staff that, there's not only those that are safety care trained, but then also those that need to be recertified. So he's got an enormous list of, because everything has to go according to calendar years and the month. And then always looking at new people to safety care train.
Great
as
to
well.
have a point person
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
I think that's enormous.
We had, Devin
Devin
before
was
him
the
was our
other
point person. So we have a very comprehensive list of staff. With that, to your point though, I will say that at the start of this year, in the transition between Devin and Dan, we went back out to principals and shared with them because of the retraining requirements, it can get lost, like who was retrained, who wasn't.
Yeah.
And so all updated forms were sent to every principal to know exactly who's currently trained, who needs a recertification, who has a 60-day expiration.
Right.
But there wasn't, none of our buildings were, in a low concerning number. Our principals do a really good job of keeping people certified. But I will say that the new information did give principals an eye on, like, okay, I've had some retirees who had the training, let's make sure. So we keep a really close eye on it. It's not something we take lightly of our safety care certification.
And just making sure that the ESPs working with the students know if they're not the one trained, know
Yep.
who to go to.
Yep.
Great. Any questions, comments?
Okay, thank you, Ms.
Thank you.
very much.
Thank you.
The last item of new business is a vote to endorse the Walpole High School schematic design, that project was just referenced as part of Goal 4. This particular vote is largely symbolic, one, because we've been in the schematic design process for a number of months now, and it's not required of us to do this at this point. I would like to request that we perhaps table this vote until a later date. And the reason for that is, I think will become clear once we move into old business and talk more in depth in the high school project section of the agenda. But as I said, it's not required for us to vote tonight, so I would entertain a motion to.
I would make a motion to table the item 4.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Gallivan, second by Mr. Breen. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstained? 700. Thank you. And next is the superintendent report.
Yes, just a few items. In terms of the superintendent cabinet selection, I'm delighted to inform you that the Walpole High School superintendent cabinet members have been selected. The applicants were notified for selection on Tuesday. Our first meeting is scheduled on Wednesday, November 1st. Their invaluable contributions are going to play an important role in shaping the educational experience for their peers. So I'm really excited for our work together. MCAS parent reports, they've been mailed home, so I trust that most families or all families have received them by now. If anyone has not yet received these reports, please don't hesitate to reach out to central office or the individual schools for assistance. Just a quick town meeting recap. I believe it was Monday, October 16th, marked our town meeting. The proposed capital items, which included the access control panels, the Chromebook replacements, the partial HVAC at the high school, and the HVAC equipment study at the elementary schools, were all approved. So these investments are essential to maintaining and enhancing our learning environment for our students. In terms of instructional leadership, just to highlight, I know Mr. Barner mentioned this a bit, at classroom visits, as a leadership team, we continue to place strong emphasis on instructional leadership. We're actively engaging in classroom visits and focus on priority indicators. This month, our focus was on differentiation, both in terms of provisioning, so like pre-class, and the implementation in instruction, so we can continue to have high expectation for all our students. In line with this, Dr. Hahn has been conducting walkthroughs with principals to support our first-year teachers. Literacy screening, I just want to mention that. Our elementary school principals recently shared in their e-notes that this year we're required to provide literacy screening for all students in grades kindergarten through 3, at least twice per year. And this is consistent with the new Massachusetts regulations. So in Walpole, we'll assess the kindergarten students 2 times a year, once in the winter and once in the spring. And we'll assess students in grades 1 through 3 3 times a year. These assessments make it possible to see if a student is at risk of developing reading difficulties, including the risk of dyslexia. Screening does not diagnose dyslexia or other disabilities, but it does help us understand which students may need additional support to be successful readers. Following the screening assessment, a team at our school will review all students' results, and if a child scores significantly below benchmarks, we will contact those families or those parents to discuss how that we can continue to support their children. Academic support teams additionally at each school are currently working to review the results, gain insight from educational stakeholders, and determine a plan to further manage each child's progress. I just want to note that even though we're required to assess and screen our students every year, it's important to know that Walpole Public Schools have been participating in early literacy screening process for the last 2 years in all of our elementary grades. We're committed to meeting the academic needs of our students and understand the importance of partnering with caregivers to provide this important support at home and at school. Any questions about this process, you can contact either the building principal, our District K-5 ELA coordinator, that's Shannon Finley, or this guy right here, Assistant Superintendent Dr. Hahn. Reminder, tomorrow's an early release day. Parent-teacher conferences are slated for that afternoon. We continue with conferences both at the middle schools and at the elementary schools, so check calendars. Also a reminder, Fales, Leach, Rogers, and Kunde scholarship applications are due Tuesday, correct, Mrs. Mortelli? October 31st, they are due. And also be reminded that Friday, November 10th, we observe Veterans Day, and therefore there's no school that day. And that's it.
Thank you. Questions or comments for Dr. Goff? Busy as always.
Busy.
We'll move on to old business. The first item being the middle school building project update. Mr. Breen.
So I sound like a broken record, but it's on budget and on time. They're just at about the 40% complete threshold, which is kind of a important marker. The building committee had a tour last week, so it was the first time that I saw it. So yeah, it's coming along.
Central office staff also had a tour, which was nice.
Previously, yeah.
Yeah,
yes, I heard
yes,
that,
that's
yeah.
great.
Excellent. Okay, we'll move on to the high school project update. At town meeting, under Article 1, we spoke about the status of this project to give an update to RTMs and the larger community. Unfortunately, that presentation was not captured by Walpole Media due to technical difficulties beyond their control. So I'm going to recap what was said that evening and just give a general update on where we are now and how we got here. So back in 2016, when the district first submitted statements of interest to the Mass School Building Authority for help with our facilities needs, we included statements for Walpole High School, Bird Middle School, and Johnson Middle School. In 2019, when we were finally made eligible for MSBA funding, it was to pursue a middle school project only. The high school was not included. And we made a commitment as a school committee and a school department at that point to pursue needed improvements at Walpole High School within the town budget and without pursuing an override. So the project has moved along. As I mentioned previously, we have been in the schematic design phase, and there has been a working group that has been conceiving a design that we feel meets the most pressing needs at the high school. And it really has created a project, the scope of which it touches every aspect of life at Walpole High School: academics, athletics, extracurriculars, and student support. So the priorities for this project include improving the science and STEM conditions by increasing classroom space by 25%, as well as creating improved flexibility of that space. And as we noted at town meeting, science, technology, and engineering is probably the area of our curriculum that has changed and continues to change most rapidly. And if we think back to the year 2000, when the last high school renovation was undertaken, and imagine all that has changed technology-wise since then, I think we can all see why upgrades are needed. beyond the science wing renovation, which is slated to occur in the current footprint of the science wing, the proposed project includes construction of a field house, which would be located, if you were looking at the building from Common Street, to the left of the library. And the purpose of including the construction of a field house in this project was really because it was the most cost-effective way of adding space to the high school, far more cost-effective than building a new wing of classrooms. The field house would allow for our athletics programs and our wellness department to vacate their current space and move into this new space. And then space in the existing building would be freed up for additional space and renovated space for our music department, Walpole Media and Production classes, and our student support services, including METCO and school counseling. Where we had been in the timeline was, as I said, we've been in the design process, and the timeline was looking toward making a request at fall town meeting in 2024 for an appropriation to begin the construction with a completion target date of late 2026. And I should mention too, two other portions of the project. One would be exterior site improvements to pedestrian access, traffic flow, and parking, with a net increase of 40 or 50 parking spaces on the site. And perhaps most importantly, upgrades and replacements of our HVAC systems, in particular the ones in the original part of the building. If anyone had spent any time in Walpole High School in those hot days back in September, or knows somebody who has, you'll understand the urgency of that need. And fortunately, HVAC is an area where we are able to secure some reimbursed funding for that expense, which is great. So, all told, the project, including the HVAC costs, is expected to total between $30 to $37 million. And some of the funding sources that were under consideration included borrowing, capital stabilization, remaining funds from completed capital projects, and free cash. We noted at town meeting that the timeline proposed is dependent on the overall funding picture over the next several months, and I will just note that since town meeting, the funding picture has changed considerably given the passage of the vote this past Tuesday on the Tri-County High School project. So we intend to engage in some community forums over the coming months and information sessions, I shouldn't say forums, information sessions, to provide more information to the community about the project and where it stands. But that is the update for now. And anybody who is there, and if I missed anything, please feel free to jump in. Mrs. Gallivan?
I kind of hesitate because I feel like sometimes there's a need for a good cop, bad cop, and you did a beautiful job of explaining what we were trying to do. I'm very concerned, though, about I'm concerned about whether this project can or should move forward, because I don't want it to come at the expense of our operating budget. I think that we've been given some pretty clear direction from the town administration and the other boards that 2/3 of the funding for the Tri-County project is going to come from the school departments, one way or the other. And personally, I don't see us having the capacity to handle that in our operating budget. So I think we need to talk about where people feel our priorities are, because that's going to be coming up fairly soon. And you know, it intersects with the FY25 budget. It's not like I'm suggesting that we decide anything tonight, but I do think that it's, if we have to choose one or the other, I think we should talk about the fact that we know we have some challenges coming up with our operating budget because of the growth in the special ed budget, because of the contracts we've committed to, and if we have to choose, what's our priority? So sorry to be the bad news bearer, but I think that's an important conversation right now.
Mr. Buckley.
Through you, Madam Chair, I'll be worst cop. Happy 150th birthday, Walpole High. Happy 114th year up on Butchers Hill there as well. I think our colleague and Dean is quite correct. I've been thinking about this a lot. I think it's important, and we do this at this table not infrequently, but to take 5 or 6 steps back and articulate what our motivation is and how we've operated. And I think I'm proud of how this board has operated, how we looked at the needs of the high school, how we didn't abandon those needs after the MSBA's decision to work with us to build a combined middle school, but also looking at from making sure the field house was it's the most building we can get with the least amount of steel at the cheapest price. I think our proposal has been very well hued by the work of our former colleague as well, and we presented something that is very moderate and very measured, and very after a large amount of deliberation from a lot of our stakeholders. I want to hold on to that as we look at what the future is, and I think it would be a shame to build or augment the facility and not have the people to put in the facility, which is the most important part of the facility, the learning that any facility we build or anything we augment or renovate in this district, it's the humans who will be in there doing the educating that are central. And so I think for a long time now, for a couple of years, we've been very clear about what this board has done, starting in 2012, starting with Nancy and I, 2009, with the 3 levels of cuts we made to our budget to allow us to ask the people of Walpole for additional funding. I think we've been very clear for a couple of years that we're not going to do that for this project. I want to reaffirm that for myself as we think about this project and where we go from here, that I have no appetite to do that. So as conversations happen about the $1 million or more bill we will get every year as a community, I think we have to point out that this board has been very clear for a long time what we're doing, what we're trying to accomplish, what we believe is tenable. And I would hope that through your leadership and Nancy and the 7 of us, we interject ourselves forcefully into those conversations. There's a lot of, and we talk about this all the time, and it's, we say this every budget cycle, right? There's a discussion, there's the conversation, often a hard one. In December or January, we go up to the high school, of all places, and talk with our district leaders about where we want to go and what the challenges are, what the needs are, and what we can do to effectuate those needs. And then a lot of stuff happens. And state aid comes in, the budget goes up and the budget goes down, and the town administrator gives a speech, and the cherry sheets come in, and then we come out at town meeting with a different picture. And there's a lot of steps along that way. And I think likewise with this, there's a lot of projects in our community and a lot of needs that we're going to be trying to balance in the next few years. And there's a lot of different funding sources and a lot of decisions that will be made quickly that will have generational reverberations. And I think we have to be strong in explaining where we've been, how we've operated. We've been very upfront. We've been very moderate. And I think our colleagues, especially on the select board, have owe us a really serious dialogue about how to move forward. And I think we have to kind of be on them in that. Our colleagues, we work well with as we talk about difficult decisions to be made, not only for this high school and the future of that building as a 21st century center of learning, but also how just our operating budgets themselves may be affected, again, on this high school matter and what we will do and the prospect of going backwards, which is very troubling to me, with all the other normal things that we have to overcome every single year. So with that, as Nancy would say, stay tuned, but I think it's really important we find out very soon. I think the selectmen vaguely talked about discussing this in the next couple of weeks, so I would hope a few of us would be in the audience, and maybe we can work with Mary to make sure a quorum notices so we're on the safe side, but hopefully we can be around for that.
Mr. Reed?
So in short, because of the passage of Tri-County, that's $1 million hit to our budget. We're not likely moving forward with the high school project. It's fair to say. At least the timeline is pushed back a lot.
I think the only other option is if we felt like we could absorb it in our operating budget.
Correct.
Which I can't see that. I think we've worked really hard since the override in 2012 to be very aware of what our costs are, what we're trying to protect. And I think we've done a good job of protecting the operating budget. I can't see us being able to absorb a hit of that size.
I think, as you alluded to, Bill, that in recent years, the board has never undertaken any significant project at the detriment of the work that we do every day. And that would be hard, I think, for any of us individually or as a board to justify. But we will see how conversations unfold with the select board and the town, and we will see how the funding picture develops as things become more solidified with timing and actual dollar numbers with Tri-County. As we know, that picture is changing with the MSBA just coming out and releasing a small chunk of additional funding for that project. So we'll see how it all pans out. I think that we have at least put this project in context now, and we have some work to do over the next several months. So,
Jen.
Oh, Ms. Gaotitz.
Yeah, I'm really distressed by, the way this came out, and the voters of Walpole made their feelings heard, but unfortunately, it's 11 towns that get to vote on this, and this is really distressing that it's going to be such a huge hit on our budget. So I would just ask people to write to the state legislature. We should all be expressing concern over what this is going to do to our budget, and ask the state to put more money towards this, because it's just really unfortunate that we had to pass an operational override years ago, and this budget hit basically wipes out a lot of that in our planned project here. So it's just very sad, and I think, the more people that make their voices heard, maybe we'll get more funding, is my hope, so.
Mrs. Rogers?
And I would just say too, that I think we all feel this way, and people I've talked to in the community, we want Tri-County has needs as well. And that, we want those needs to be met as well, but it's at the detriment of our own operating budget. So I think just making that clear too, that it's not that we don't want Tri-County to have their renovations, it's just we need to figure out a way to make it work without putting us more underwater and the other districts, that voted on this. I don't know if it was clear to all the voters what the actual impact would be on their individual town budgets. But now we're gonna face that reality, so I agree. In, trying to work with the state more and seeing if more funding can come from other places rather than our own.
Mrs. Gallivan, did you?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, the reason I brought up the operating budget specifically is to just give Carrie a sense. I don't think it's appropriate to vote anything tonight, but I do think that there's going to be some significant conversation over the next few weeks. And if we feel as a group that we can give her the consensus that we really would prioritize the operating budget over the high school project. I know that's how I feel, and I think we need to give her a little bit of direction.
Mrs. Syrak?
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said. I think over the last year, and even more so, we spent a lot of time with FinCom, with the Board of Selectmen, or the Select Board, to really look at how do we do a high school responsibly and fairly and truly look at our needs. I mean, I think we had 11 or 12 things on the original list. We whittled it down to 9. We looked at what are the true needs, what has the biggest impact. So I don't think that we undertook that project in a greedy or flashy way. I think it was very, very well prescribed. I think that there are stages to that project. I don't know that means there's a stage 1 and a stage 2 that can happen. I don't think it happens anytime soon with this news. And I mean I agree. We can't, as Bill mentioned, you can't take away from what happens within the building, and the operating budget has to come first.
Further still, I think, as we talk about, we think about these ripples, right? At town meeting just a couple weeks ago, we were able to get a piece of the HVAC done. And so this is going to affect, for this building, as we tried to take pieces out and we tried to aggressively go after, through the work of Mr. Frisha and his team, some of the HVAC tax credits and reimbursements we have. This will also affect our capacity even to sort of nibble around the edges on the physical plants and stuff. So I think that's, as the town decides what to do with their final couple $100,000 of federal money as well, which we have, as a district, have only gotten about a fourth of. That's also important because that directly ties into, it's great, legislature's been a great partner. They've gotten us a lot of earmarks in that HVAC sphere, specifically for the high school, and that was helpful. But I think as well we have to have the hard conversations with our colleagues as well about what Walpole's doing with their funds and those priorities as well. So.
Well, it sounds as though we do have a general consensus about what our budget priorities need to be in the upcoming budget season and beyond. So, as I said, we will be having some conversations with our counterparts on the town side, and we'll take it from there. So thank you all for your input. I appreciate it. Next is subcommittee activity. I don't know if we had any meetings in the last 2 weeks. Okay, so we will move on, and seeing no citizens, we will move on to approval of warrants and minutes.
I'd like to put forth a motion to approve the following warrants. Warrant number 2413 PS, payroll for $1,935,915.93.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Rogers, second by Mr. Breen. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstained? 700.
Warrant number 224014 for food services and accounts payable.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Rogers, second by Mr. Breen. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstained? 700. Would somebody like to take the minutes?
There was one more warrant.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No worries. 224015 that covers student activity funds, food services, and accounts payable.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Rogers, second by Mrs. Cyrek. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstained? 700. Now, would somebody like to take the minutes?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the October 12th, 2023 school committee meeting minutes.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Buckley, second by Mr. Breen. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstained? 601.
No, I can vote for them.
What?
You're just attesting to the veracity of the clerk, so I'm sure Mary did a fine job. You don't have
You
to.
you
yeah.
can vote on it
I know,
even when you're
Jen
not here.
abstained.
Yeah.
Oh, Jen did,
Yeah, it's
okay.
fine. It's your choice.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm slow with the hand out in the cheap seats.
Okay, we do have a need for executive session this evening for the purposes of discussion of pending litigation and/or matters which have the potential to result in litigation. So I will entertain a motion to adjourn from public session and enter into executive session.
So moved.
We should probably, a friendly amendment to that,
Sure.
so that we're like legit. I would make a motion pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, subsection 21A3, to enter into executive session under purpose 3 to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining and/or litigation if an open meeting, as declared by the chair, may have a detrimental effect on bargaining or litigation, and to return to open session solely for the purposes of adjournment.
Second.
Motion, much more elegant motion by Mr. Buckley, second by Mr. Breen. All those in favor?
We have
Oh, we have to poll,
yeah.
I'm sorry, poll of the committee. Mrs. Rogers?
Yes.
Mrs. Cyrek?
Yes.
Mr.
Yes.
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 Breen? Yes.
Yes.
700, the motion passes. We will be returning to public session only for the purposes of adjournment. Thank you, and good night.